In this review we look at a couple of new Sennebogen models from Ross. It's the 613E in tracked and wheeled versions. To begin with, we'll start by unpacking the wheeled version, and it's factory sealed on the outside. We cut the tapes, and that allows us to open up the flap and then pull out what's inside, and that begins with a piece of paper. Then we find the usual pair of expanded polystyrene trays, and they're also factory sealed. With the trays separated, we get to see the various parts of the model. Both models are essentially the same, so let's see what we've got. And there's a man basket first, and then we have a small fly jib. Next out is a bag containing a few small parts, and then we can use the giant hand crane to get the model crane out of its box. Included with each model is a simple pictorial sheet which tries to describe the functions of the model. For the assembly, we'll start off by tidying it up, and that means cutting off a loose end of the rope where it was tied to the hook. And then we'll attach the fly jib onto the side of the boom. It fits in easily enough, and then you pin it in position with a steel pin. On the wheeled version of the model, it looks like there's a holder for the single line hook, but either the holder's too small or the hook's too big to fit. To begin with, the wheeled version of the model is 299243 and the tracked version is 299244. The wheeled version has got chunky tyres, and there's a functionally modelled steering mechanism with some other detailing in the casting. The outrigger beams, front and rear, are metal, and they are nicely decorated with chevrons and highlighting. The cab appears to be all plastic, but it does have a good level of detailing in terms of graphics and seals on the windows. On the inside, the wheeled version of the model has a steering wheel, and looking at the wheels, they are nicely detailed. There are some textured stepping plates, and the detailing on the body is very good, with small graphics adding to the realism. Behind the cab there's a run of plastic cables, but maybe the connection rivets would have been better smaller or painted. At the back, the counterweight is nicely formed with the Sennebogen name. There's some plastic work on top of the engine, although some of it looks a little bit rough. But on the plus side, there's some nice diamond plating work at the front. There are textured steps leading up to the top, and the mirror on that side is plastic. The fly jib is a metal part with only the big rivets detracting from the appearance a little bit, but the small hydraulic ram that adjusts the tilt angle looks quite good. The boom has got some nice detailing, including rope guides on the top. But again, as you get to the boom head, the rivets are rather larger than you would like. Two metal hooks are provided, including this one, which has a brass pulley. But the rope that's selected for the model is just the wrong grade. It's just too stiff, so it doesn't hang right, and most collectors will want to replace it. The man basket that's included with the model is an all-metal part, apart from the ram jacket. The tracked version of the model is different, because it has tracks, and these are metal and quite nicely detailed. The track frames also have steps. On the wheeled version, the wheels turn easily enough, although they are a little loose on their mountings, and you can steer both axles independently, and the range of movement you can get is good enough. If you want to drive the wheeled version along, then you can, and it rolls reasonably well without being free rolling. Let's do our usual test on the steering and see how it goes around a bend, and it's able to turn nice and sharply. The tracked version is nice because the tracks are retractable for transport and you can spread them out for when it's in working mode. The tracks are on fairly tightly, but they do roll well enough, and the tension is maintained in the usual way by spring-loaded idlers. Back to the wheeled version, and we can set down the outriggers, which are at the front and at the back. And they are nicely stiff, so at least they don't flap about. Once they are fully lowered, the pads do touch the ground nicely, but you can't raise the wheels off the ground. As for rotation, the model turns easily enough, and it's smooth with some stiffness and no rocking. A feature of the real crane is the elevating cab, and that works well on the model. You raise the boom in the usual way, and the hydraulic ram's just perhaps a little bit sticky, and I'm not sure it goes as steep as it should. You extend the telescopic sections in the usual way, and there are locks at full extension. And you can operate the winch by using a key in the winch drum. But because the hoist rope is not flexible enough, then even if you winch up with a load on the hook, the rope doesn't run smoothly. One interesting and unusual attachment is the man basket, and that pins into the end of the boom in a very simple and easy way. The geometry is such that you can't have the boom at too steep an angle, but there is movement in the basket to allow for angles when the boom is right down to horizontal. The other configuration option you have is to attach the fly jib, and that easily pins into position in exactly the same way as the basket. Of course, you need to rerun the hoist rope, so you've got to get the scissors out and cut the rope, and then you re-reeve it over the top of the fly jib. You can only run a single line over the fly jib, and there's a single line hook included with the model. The fly jib can also be set at offset angles using the hydraulic ram. The main plus point of these models from Ross is how they look in terms of the detailing, and that's only really let down by the poor quality hoist rope. There's an interesting variety of features on these models, and most of those work reasonably well. These are two interesting versions of the 613E, and they're rated as good.